Alien is one of those movies with lots of interest in its lore and history. The film itself has multiple interpretations, whether it be the director's cut or the novelization. Very few movies exhibit this much enthusiasm. The more we dig like cinematic archaeologists, the more questions we have. Films like Prometheus don't put these questions to rest, they get sidestepped, even ignored. But that's for another video. I want to talk about Alien, the Illustrated Story by Archie Goodwin and Walter Simonson. This is a reprint I purchased from Amazon, and I'm going over some of the story that's told differently from the original theatrical cut, with many of the ideas still found in the director's cut, deleted scenes, or the novelization. But before we begin, kindly consider a like, share, or subscribe if you enjoy this video. It really does encourage me to create more Alien content like this one. Foreshadowing Kane's sleep experience. We start with Kane waking up from hypersleep. It's a more literal interpretation from the exclusively visual depiction in the film. Kane's complaint is a clever foreshadow about the troubles he will have waking up from a long sleep. Rise and shine. A few panels are devoted to Kane making coffee for the crew. This was filmed but deleted from the movie. This little bit of trivia is tipped off by Parker, who comments, "Coffee is the only good thing on the ship." Listening to the distress signal. Fast forward to the crew listening to the strange alien distress signal. Excluded from the theatrical release, you'll find it in both the director's cut and the novelization. I think this works well in a graphic novel where you hear everything in your head. Disabling the transmission. Skipping to the derelict ship and the space jockey comes a frame that addresses a question I long had. What happened to the alien distress call? Why hasn't anyone talked about it in the sequel? The call that had broadcasted for centuries, eons, who knows how long. And Dallas switches it off, perhaps by accident. There's a reference to the transmitter in the novelization, but nothing about disabling the signal. I haven't seen any deleted footage about it either. If you know, leave a comment below. Getting Kane back to the ship. In the film, we get a very quick glimpse of how Kane was dragged back to the Nostromo. In the graphic novel, we get a clear panel of Kane's travois, or makeshift gurney. The novelization mentioned Dallas and Lambert made the travois out of the equipment they carried with them, including pieces of the tripod. You'll see part of the tripod briefly when Kane descends into the egg chamber. A better view was filmed but deleted. Parker and Brett eavesdrop. When Dallas and Lambert return to the Nostromo with the facehugger attached to Kane, Dallas gets into an argument with Ripley over protocol. With Ash standing by, this extra panel shows how Parker and Brett took time away from repairs to listen in. Superfluous in the film, it does fill in some continuity later in the infirmary. Lambert strikes Ripley. Back in the infirmary, Ripley is last to join the other five. As depicted in the director's cut, Lambert lashes out at Ripley for being a stickler to the rules. However, there is no shouting match between Ripley and Dallas. Return to Kane. After the acid spill, the crew returns to the infirmary to check up on Kane, curious if any of the acid had spilled on him. While Kane was lucky, a closer inspection shows the facehugger's wound had already healed. This is from the novelization. Absorbing Kane. The illustrated story has Ash, implying the facehugger may be absorbing something from Kane's system. This is an important clue, if true, how the alien parasite transmutes organic material. This is pulled from the novelization, where Ash mentions Kane had suffered tissue damage and loss of weight, But Ash also posits it may be normal since Kane hadn't eaten or drank anything for a long time. Replaced with Ash. The Alien film addresses Ash's history with the Nostromo, more specifically, how he was a last-minute replacement. This fuels the theory the company conspired to bring back an alien life form before the Nostromo began their voyage. But it also adds, by Dallas, that Ripley too was a last-minute replacement. This passage is taken from the novel. Strangely, I only remember about Ash, partly because the film only mentions Ash. Knowing how the film turned out, I prefer the film's take, leaving a subtle hint about Ash for us to pick up later. It's one of the few upfront examples of how the company maneuvers behind the scenes for its own devices. Referencing Ripley makes roster moves nothing out of the ordinary. Having Ash replace a prior science officer change the mission. Including Ripley into the mix doesn't really. Or does it? There is a passage in the novelization when Ash's head speaks to the remaining survivors of the Nostromo. Ash shares the company's plan, how they would sneak alien organisms to Earth. Part of the excuse is throwing the crew under the bus as being too careless and stupid. Ripley's addition may have been part of a wider plan to dilute the crew's experience of its officers. Of course, seeing how the character of Ripley turned out, that plot point wouldn't have worked. Kane's recovery. How does the graphic novel reveal Kane's recovery? He just steps right into the mess hall with Ash by his side. No moments reflecting on his memories or nightmares. But Kane does make a wish to eat some food. The illustration shows how gaunt Kane turned, almost less than human. When Kane recovered consciousness, I had taken his plea for something to eat as something very human. He's been out for a long time. It would be natural he would want something to fill his belly. The novelization mentions how it's better to be in hypersleep on a full stomach. With this insight, it could be he was hungry to feed his larva essential nutrients. It's a horrific thought, how in his last moments, his mind was being tricked to do what was best for the xenomorph inside of him. More details follow later. Dallas says, "Kill it." Condensed from the book, still more than the movie, Dallas gives the order to kill the newborn xenomorph. It's pretty much presumed in the film. Before Kane's funeral, the novelization has the crew in long discussions about the danger the loose creature poses. Here, Dallas keeps it simple. Dallas confronts Ash. The illustrated story skips Kane's funeral altogether. Dallas does mention it when he confronts Ash, accusing the science officer of knowing there was something growing inside Kane. Ash simply denies it, and the story moves on to Ripley, Parker, and Lambert looking for the alien with their tracking units. The condensed narrative of Ash knowing something within Kane and denying it is something more fleshed out in the novel. There, a smudge is noticed in Kane's body scan, but discounted as just a stain. Ash theorizes that the xenomorph may have the ability to hide, cloak itself from the autodoc scanning frequencies. The novelization does reveal that the autodoc had logged Kane's weight, registering it as steady. Ash tells Dallas that the xenomorph's weight would have been recognized as Kane's, confirming it had absorbed Kane's organic material for its own growth spurt. Brett meets the xenomorph. Brett's unfortunate meeting with the full-grown alien, like the film, was fast and brutal. It does show a few panels from the movie, but shown later. That is the tail between Brett's feet, depicted as Lambert's in the film. There is also a frame at the end with Ripley and Lambert witnessing Brett's demise, omitted from the theatrical release, but present in the director's cut. Lambert chides Parker. When the crew regroups, Lambert chides Parker about his opportunity to get full shares. This is taken from the novelization. Ripley is in command. Parker says the obvious to Ripley, that she's in command after Dallas's death. This is taken from the novel. Ripley comforts Lambert. After Dallas falls victim in the air ducts, Lambert panics and Ripley comforts her when they two are alone. Ripley asks Lambert if she had ever slept with Ash, to which she replied he didn't seem interested. I had always taken this as Ripley's suspicions of Ash. You can find this in the novelization as well as in a deleted scene. It was part of a plot point about on-the-job fringe benefits and never worrying about HR. Ash attacks Ripley. What is consistent with the film is Ash meets up with Ripley in the Mother Chamber after she learns too much about Special Order 937. The illustrated story has Ash attack Ripley in the chamber without saying a word and dragging her out and finding a magazine to roll up. Parker gets the last word. The scene of the head of Ash sharing his final thoughts is pretty faithful in spirit with the film. A difference is Parker gets in a final word before blasting what's left of Ash with his flamethrower. Parker and Lambert. Parker and Lambert's final scene is on par with the film. Parker's death is depicted more horrifically. According to sources, there were many options on how to finish off Lambert. Without knowing ahead of time, the graphic novel chose to show very little detail of Lambert, other than she lost her shoes, as seen in the film. Box Alien. On her way to the shuttle, Ripley runs into the xenomorph in the middle of the corridor, folded up, shaped like a box. 4 panels are dedicated to this. It's safe to say this design is deliberate. There's debate where this idea came from, including whether or not it was filmed. It's not mentioned in the book either. The idea had to come from somewhere, and you'll see something similar in Prometheus. Ripley's log and reference to Kane's coffee. After Ripley escapes in the shuttle, undresses and finds time to relax, we read her thoughts moments before the alien hand jump scare. What she hopes, being rescued by the network, comes earlier, and she mentions she'll miss Kane's coffee. The novelization makes no mention of the coffee being that good. Ripley's last words. The film's ending is made with music, lighting, and kinetic energy. Somehow, the illustrated story needed to share the fear and the exhaustion Ripley was feeling dealing with the xenomorph species. She gets in a few choice words, something to be seen in the sequel. And that is my list of notable changes in Alien, the illustrated story, from the theatrical release. If you're interested in hearing what I think of the graphic novel, you can check out part 2 of this video right here. This is Mr. G of Synergy saying, there's always time for good coffee. Thanks for watching.